morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News, where we rate AI developments essential, important, or optional. So the articles are at gaiinsights.com/articles. So follow along and please tell us what you think as we're discussing the topics. Today, we have a regular crew, John, Ankaj, Paul, and Tim, who joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining.
Happy to be here.
So let's go with the first article, Ankaj, please.
Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from OpenAI, and they have introduced GPT 5.3 Instant, which promises smoother, more useful everyday conversations.
Yeah, and indeed, it's a little smoother. I tried it this morning. So what did you think, Ankaj?
I was optional on this one, Luda. I think
okay, hold on. This was Tim. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Ankash is very good at what he does. Doesn't matter. So, but I will say the same thing. I was optional on this. This is interesting. It's an incremental improvement over what they do. We all have experienced the remarkable ability of OpenAI's voice interface. I think it's one of the main things that makes them quite popular. And you know, it's what, maybe a year and a half old. Again, it's, I'll channel my inner Paul and say it's kind of breathtaking that you can talk to these things like a human being. And again, I don't like anthropomorphizing, but they're pretty good. On the other hand, this particular upgrade, it's a product announcement. It seems a little better. But it's mostly looks like polish on the stone as opposed to some remarkable new capability. So optional for me.
But it gets to the point. So previously it would say, if this, then that, then maybe that, right? So it's now it's a little more pointed. Okay, Ankash, now.
Yeah, but that's that. I could argue that, for some people that's better, for some people that's worse. This is the complex problem of improving semantic models. Because linguistics we could go down the rabbit hole quite deeply on this. So most people will like it. I suspect they're good at doing their psychological research, but I bet it's not universal.
Yeah, no, I'm totally in agreement with you. Ankash, what do you think?
Optional for me as well, Luda. I agree with them. It's an incremental improvement. I think some of this you could just do by adding your custom instructions on how to respond to your queries and how to think about it. So for that reason, an optional read.
Okay, we're going optional. John, Paul?
Yeah, I just want to optimize with optional. I just want to note we just did a training yesterday for 120 senior executives, and response time matters. I think this is an optional thing, but response time, quality of answer, all that stuff. It's we still have a big race there, and the more performant these things are, the more likely they are to get engagement and market share.
Yeah. Okay, Paul. Anything to add? Optional it is.
Optional.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next one, please.
Okay, the next one comes from TechCrunch, and it talks about Claude Code's new capability where you can now talk to it.
Yeah, it's not really an official announcement because I went to Anthropic to try to find it, and it's in there, but it's kind of buried. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I had this as an optional. We have the buyer rule, which is 9 months before your IPO, you're just talking about everything that's great, and so I think this is another one of those. It's like, hey, I have 3 potted plants. Check this out. Look, voice is an important. I'm kidding around, but voice is incredibly important, and it's important for all the reasons that we've known over the years. For sure, what you can do. Certainly it gives access to lots of people who can't type, and then you've got it's a totally different modality, the way you think and so forth. But I think that these models even more. I mean, voice interaction was one thing. Dragon Labs and folks like that went at it for many years. But this notion of how you really have a conversation matters, and so having a conversation with the code. But this is a short article, product announcement, optional.
Optional for John. Tim?
Yeah, optional for me. In fact, they've had voice mode in the chat side for quite a while. And the other thing about Claude is they have voice mode input, but they don't have voice mode response. I'm not sure. This may be part of they don't do images either because they're concerned about safety and things like that. But I don't know why so it's not really a conversation. It's very helpful. You can talk to it. But for most modern devices these days, you can talk to it anyway. You just put the microphone on and it'll take your voice and put it into text wherever it belongs. So not a big deal, optional for me.
Yeah, it's actually for Claude Code.
Right. But
I
it's
don't
been
know.
on
It's
Claude
very
Chat for a long
right.
time.
So, but it's very strange. I haven't tried it, but it's very strange to try to say, well, do this change and describe it. Sometimes it's better to just point to it. Okay, so Ankash, what do you think?
Option from me as well, Luda. I think just from a coding perspective, I'm not sure how useful this particular feature will be. Broadly, from a regular chat interface, this is quite useful, but from a coding perspective, not really sure.
It's strange, right? Okay, we are going optional, Paul. Okay.
Yeah, optional, but I do want to highlight the voice encoding. So Peter, who started OpenClaw in his Lex Friedman,
right?
OpenClaw, his Lex Friedman interview, he mentioned how he went hoarse talking to the different coding tools. So, and I know for myself, I've really gotten into this habit of, having voice input into the question and answer when the robots are asking me questions on requirements document. But this particular feature is optional.
Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the next one is a research paper which comes from Meta Labs, and it is titled Agentic Code Reasoning.
Yeah, pushing the cost of training models and the like. It's a very interesting research paper. What did you think about this, Ankash? And please tell us what it's about.
So basically, the researchers here, they tested whether AI can understand and reason about code without actually executing the code. So no tests, no executing programs, etc. So it uses a style called show your work style, where the AI must write a step-by-step explanation of what the code does before giving an answer in terms of what the code is able to achieve, right? So with this particular method, the authors, they are reporting that there's better accuracy than other simpler approaches, including bug fixes, etc. But they also then admit that with this method as well, the AI can still miss the details, get confused by external libraries, and provide a convincing explanation, which might be wrong. So while this is an incremental improvement in how these coding agents understand the underlying code, I think for an AI leader right now, this is an optional read.
The improvement is quite dramatic, isn't it? Like 10 points of inaccuracy. What did you think about this, Tim?
Yeah, I'm with Ankash. I think he summed it up well. It's interesting. It's a semi-formal process, so it gives some structure beyond just saying, let's think step by step. But it's not a formal process, and as a result, it goes short from 77 to 88%, but it's still wrong a fair amount of the time. And as Ankash said, gets even more confused as the systems get more complicated. So interesting. Some improvement. I'm not sure of the day-to-day utility of it in its research, so I think optional for the AI leader.
I was actually on the important side because in the prior days of software development, this was like an interpretive capability versus compiling capabilities when you execute and then fix bugs. Here you go step by step. You essentially interpreting semantic understanding of the model. And as a result, you can catch it at whatever point. And so 88%, it's a great improvement, and you can push it some more. It will save a mountain of cost because you don't need to execute to train these models. So it's invisible. I agree for AI leader, it's sort of in the guts of the training models, but as a result, we will have a leap. So that's why I was on important side. John, what did you think? You're on
mute, John.
Alrighty. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was originally on optional, but I'm starting to think important. I mean, I think this whole notion of what we call value engineering, or intelligence value engineering, it's going to be such a bigger and bigger part of the cost base in terms of, doing your inference that, the ability to tune that, as you say, alluded to a lot. And again, important is not, required reading. I'm glad to see that you folks support the notion that our AI leader might actually be technical. Okay.
Okay. So Paul, Paul, you have a deciding vote here.
Yeah, no, Lud, I'm with you. It's definitely important here. I mean, I think the incremental improvement for some of your key knowledge workers to stay current is so important. Think about the 2,500 software developers at OpenAI in a huge competitive race. You need to make sure that all 2,500 are aware of, what are the best practices. If you got half of them still doing coding like last year's knowledge base, you're really missing productivity. So I had it as important.
Yeah, and I think my head goes to Meta. They're going into the guts of the training LLMs and coming up with new ways of not spending tokens on training. So this is cool. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from Physical Intelligence, and it is titled VLAs with Long and Short-Term Memory.
Yes, Tim, you love robotics. What do you think?
It's fabulous and lots of fun to watch, but I rated this optional. I could be arm twisted into important. It's what they've done here is similar to what's happening with general reasoning and problem solving and agentic development. They've let the robots create a reasoning model that helps it do longer and more complex tasks. So you can give it a higher level task, like make a grilled cheese from scratch. Now, I will note that they laid the bread and the cheese and the butter right out there, made it really easy at one level. So, but still, to watch the robot, put the butter on, put the bread on, put the cheese on. That is a remarkable advance with just a simple command. So they do it with some visual compression and some other mechanics underneath the covers to create this longer term memory, because frame compression is too expensive. It just takes a lot of memory to store individual frames. So they have some compression techniques, which mostly is what AI is about. It's really one big compression game. But they've done a good job. It's still early days on this stuff. And this is a big improvement. If you're in robotics, this is essential. Any kind of robotics or industrial manufacturing, I think you should read this. But for the rest of us, it's really fun to watch and really interesting to see how fast the robots are getting better. It can be a little scary if you think about the dark side of this, but it is what it is, and the genie's not going back in the bottle. So for me, optional may be important.
Okay, optional may be important. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I had it as important. For all the reasons that Tim said. I think this, physical thinking, but I'm fascinated by the interplay between physical reasoning and semantic understanding, and I think this is a good advance in that area. It's a lot of fun to watch. Again, not required reading. I do want to highlight something that Tim said, which I think is profound, which is at its core, AI is a game of compression. I'm not sure I completely agree, but I think that's a really cool insight. In terms of how you think about the overall effort at AI. To me, I would say it's a combination of search and compression. But yeah, anyway, profound stuff early in the morning from Tim. There you go.
Okay, what do you think, Ankash?
I was important on this one, Luda. I think it's a great improvement in the field of robotics. And From an agentic AI perspective as well, I think this has some takeaway for the AI leader because they are introducing context here, long-term memory here, which is useful for robots now and which is important for and essential maybe for our AI agents as well. So if robots can run for 15 minutes cooking you something, right, your AI agents can run even longer doing stuff in the digital environment for you. So I think they need to understand where this stuff is moving. So important.
Yeah,
You know what?
I'm with you. I'm certainly with you on the interplay of short and long memory. And they show very, very cool examples of the robot previously without that interplay opens the fridge and keeps opening on the wrong side. But if there is long memory, then they figured out to do it right. So it is a critical advancement. And this company started in 24. They already raised almost $1 billion and 5.6 billion valuation. So their objective is get that in intelligence layer with all this agentic interplay and memory into robots. So this is cool, great advancement.
Yeah, the thing that I'm really going to be curious to see, and I think the Chinese have been doing the biggest demonstrations on this, is how this stuff interplays with Swarm, because I think that at least one whole vector of the military industrial use of the war use of drones is going to be, I think, as the Chinese have demonstrated, it's going to be drone swarms, and how this kind of planning interacts with network effects, I think is going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
because if you look at biologic systems, if you have that planning plus the signaling among a swarm, like a school of fish senses on their sides where the other fish are. Well, you know what I mean? That creates a dynamism and a coordination in a very decentralized way. And this kind of planning stuck in a swarm, I mean, who knows where it goes?
Yeah, and it's certainly
I'll make the counter argument on the other side to a certain extent, which is don't get too married to this stuff too quickly, because you know a great guy from MIT said to me a long time ago, if brute force doesn't work, you're not using enough brute force. And today's world is 100% proof of that. If beyond compression, the current AI is totally brute force. It is just throw more compute, throw more time, throw more money at it, and it gets better.
You get an algorithm in there that wasn't intuitively obvious. I mean, it's
there's a whole long rabbit hole we can go down, but at the end of the day, it's about brute force. And the robot, that can't do anything but then can do a simple task with a simple semantic thing, that's great. But that same robot could do that just as easily by just having a random app thrown in, which we did with robots 30 years ago. So if you're beating your head against the wall trying to open the fridge or trying to get around something, just move randomly. And it works incredibly effectively, and it's one instruction. It's super cheap in computing style. We don't think of it because we think semantically and integratively as human beings, but robots have lots of compute and lots of capability, and just throwing random, try this, just forget everything and try this. And you have plenty of time because you're doing everything in nanoseconds, not microseconds. And it works. It's extremely effective. So it's not clear if this will work better than something like that. It's clear that they've made progress and it could be great, but I would just say it's early days and there's lots of ways to skin the cat.
Totally. The last one, I agree with wholeheartedly.
I didn't think you were at the cat skinning there, Tim.
Definitely not metaphorically only.
Okay, Paul, you have the main vote. What do you think?
I defer to Tim. I always appreciate his insights. So I know we were talking about that.
Yeah, I'll put it as important. I think it's an advancement in robotics.
I think important is good. I think it is. It's a good article for people to see.
Yeah, I think it is quite a leap. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the next one comes from the Wall Street Journal, and Meta is creating a new applied AI engineering organization.
Yeah, John, what did you think about this structuring of talent within Meta?
Yeah, I was given it important for two reasons. One is I think Meta's a big player here, and they seem to be, trying to get their act together from a development standpoint, because obviously since Llama and, LeCun getting fired or leaving or whatever he did, they haven't really been leading in anything. So I think that's important to understand what this hyperscaler is. But more importantly, and the reason it got so important for me, is the 1 to 50 structure. Similar to Jensen Huang, as I understand it, at NVIDIA, he's got a very, very large number of direct reports. So I think this gets to an idea that we've been talking about, which is the evolution of management to a much wider span of control through a combination of, agents and oversight, and really, continuous management, if you will. That, I think more and more businesses will look like process businesses. I remember when the internet came out, we're doing some work for the New York Times, and they had to take their newsroom from basically a once a day geographically based thing. So the New York news cycle was around the New York time frame, and then the International Herald Tribune, which they also owned, was around the European time frame. So they had 2 newsrooms and that kind of thing. That's all gone, right? It's 24 hours a day. And I think more and more businesses are going to look like that. So I think that this notion of, flat organizations, wide spans of control, platforms of intelligence, agents on top, and that you can run a business like that, I think we're going to see more and more. So for that reason, I gave it an important.
Interesting. These are homogeneous workers in some sense, right?
They're only homogeneous to the people who don't know them. They
are focused on putting out great software. That's homogeneity. If you look at within an enterprise, there's less homogeneity. So would you think that 50 would be the right number?
I wouldn't be surprised to see I wouldn't be surprised to have spans of control that are even larger than this.
I think.
And to me, it's less about homogeneity and more about predictability of the system. So a lot of the policy and stuff like that's going to sit in the software. So a lot of the oversight is now going to be done by the machines. Say something like, validating a piece of code in this setting, or, in a marketing, actually, Paul and I were talking to an organization that has, for their marketing activities, has 5 agents that checks content, format, quality, all that stuff. So that marketing person can now have a much broader span of control, because the basic implementation of marketing and brand policy is done by the robots. So I wouldn't be surprised in some settings to have very, very broad span of control.
Interesting.
It's interesting, this discussion, because I think you're right, but I wish it were the opposite. I think the span of control can be more or less infinite if it's done right in a truly decentralized way. So you talk about decentralization, but you talk about it, this is the way corporations and people think about it, as well, I have these robots and now I can be, kind of Skynet. I can watch everything or Matrix or whatever. It's a very dark, I can watch everything from the top because now I have all these robots. And it's still command and control at the end of the day. It's just I can command and control a lot more because I have this leverage.
Yeah.
And true decentralization, which exists in lots of corporations, a lot of consulting companies, service companies are quite decentralized. And so there's a lot of control at the individual level. Even the military at the end of the day in war is often quite decentralized, because you just can't have that span of control, because you have to make decisions instantly. And the reality is, when we're talking about knowledge work in particular, and even beyond knowledge work, most human beings are pretty capable. And I believe most human beings want to do the right thing. The thing is signaling, and that's what makes decentralization work. And decentralization, my favorite example is the wave. Everybody can do the wave, because that's a beautiful decentralized system, because you only need local knowledge to act. That's the key. If you can create it such that you only need local knowledge, you can scale it to infinity. You could do the wave with 200,000 people or 20 people. And that's a really scalable system. So I think it's the right idea, the way things are going to work, which is they're going to use the robots to basically expand command and control. But I think the right way to think about it is to think about the humans rather than the robots. And how do you get the right signals to the humans so that they can just act and not have to worry about being controlled?
Yeah, I hear you. And I think there is a notion of over centralization and control, but there is a natural backlash on that. And I think you're leaving out a really important part, which is what's the natural interdependency of a business. So if I'm in an airline, I got one airline seat that's in a big complex system that the entire system has to control, from the seat all the way out to the travel agent in its
Oh,
own.
I agree. And I think you were right in your insight that what really matters is the behavior of the system. Designing decentralized systems is hard. The wave is a simple example and a beautiful one because the global effect is quite consistent, even though the actions are all local. But it's really hard in an interconnected organization to design systems like that. But I wish people would focus there, because if you can do it, you'd have incredible advantage.
Yeah, and layering the human relationships
But it's
on top
not,
of your system.
yeah,
or
it's not
integrate
easy. I didn't
them,
say it
right?
was easy or even possible in
It's
many
like not
cases. You still have to
possible,
coordinate.
right?
It goes back to the
Yeah.
article we read the other day about coordination. You still have to coordinate.
Yeah, I hear you. I just think that the interdependence of some work is global and standard, and consulting firms are incredibly decentralized because there's very little interdependence of the work across the different teams.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's not
Exactly.
true. That's not true if I'm running an integrated oil company.
Yeah. Okay. So, Tim, were you important on this one? Because of it raises this point, but it does. The article does not. It just mentions it. Were you important, optional? What were you on this one?
Yeah, important is fine if that's the way people are going. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
I could be optional or important on this one.
Ankash,
Important for me, Luda.
Paul?
But essential discussion.
I know we're late in time here. Let me stir it up a little bit. I thought this was essential because I think, look at the conversation we just had, because it sparked a lot of conversation. If you've got 2,500 software developers or 350 people in customer service, what is the new span of control? I think is a really important question here. I think second is Alden, who over at Custom GPT, he's already shown us that he's using agents to go through and do routine check-ins on his human employees to save time. So we're already seeing that the robots can do some of the, the really basic check-ins. So I think from a conversation starter, this was, I think very fruitful. We saw it today in this conversation. So I had it rated as essential.
Yeah. Okay. The chalk says important. Let's go important. The article really doesn't focus on this. It
doesn't, right? I agree. You'd really need a see through the article kind of thing. Yeah.
It just says we are putting it into two structures. One supports the other. Just really not much of an article. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed to, but we in our write-up, we'll mention that for sure. The last one, Ankash, please.
Hello, the last one comes from Liquid AI, and they have partnered with In Silico Medicine to deliver lightweight scientific foundation models for drug discovery.
And Ankash, what did you think about this one?
I was important on this one, Luda. I think this announcement is limited to the drug discovery field, but it highlights an important trend that we might see going forward. So Liquid AI, they have developed this model, which is just 2.6 billion parameters. It can run on in silico medicine's internal compute. It can do the work which bigger models like GPT 5.1, Opus 4.5, can do, right? And it is trained on their data as well. I think they will have more such models which they will train more closely on in silico medicines data. So I think this can be a case study in terms of we have been discussing this for the past year or so, that small models can be useful for this kind of stuff, but we haven't seen such developments. So this is a step in that direction. So just to highlight to an AI leader that, okay, this can be done with their set of verticals as well. So for that reason, I was important for life sciences or drug discovery folks for sure.
Okay. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I had it as optional. I think it's very focused, more of a product announcement. I agree with you. It's an important area, and so forth. But, it's just, I had it as optional.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah, I was between optional and important as well. This is, I think, for life sciences people, as Ankash pointed out, this is really essential. You got to be aware of this stuff. In Silico's been around for a while doing this kind of thing, and I think you at least need to be cognizant of what they're doing in these advances. For the rest of us, I think, between optional and important. It's an interesting article. Liquid is still a young company that hasn't made much progress in the marketplace, but this could be quite interesting and shows the ability to get on-premise evaluation of critical infrastructure, which I think for drug companies is pretty important.
Yeah, this is Liquid finally coming and showing that they can do it on premise with deep data in specific fields. So this is cool for them. Paul, we're going optional, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I am fine with optional. I just want to highlight, this is a great example of own your own intelligence. I mean, the pharmaceutical, these tech companies are incredibly powerful, and being able to have your own intelligence behind the firewall for absolutely, cognitive automation, that's your competitive differentiation, is really important for some of your processes companies. And this is a great example of that.
Yeah. And so great. Optional it is then. Let's proceed to any announcements, Paul, if we, while we're pulling up the scores.
No, yeah. So we live debate. So is that just this week? I think this week's busy. So we had 400 people sign up for our learning lab on Monday on Claude Code and OpenClaw, and we're still lots of. So one, that the video is now on our GAI Insights YouTube channel. Two, lots of feedback continues from that, and a lot of debate about what we do the first Monday in April. We may actually just rerun one or both of those products again because there's so much interest in that. But it really shows me again is that keeping up is really hard. And most of the feedback that I got from that session was people valuing watching Ashish actually use the products. And so this world of showing about a product that you might be 6 to 9 months ahead of a person in learning is really critical. And so stay tuned for our next month's learning lab.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. And sorry for the background typing, I forgot to mute. In the chat, I put in a thing for a book called Service Breakthroughs, Changing the Rules of the Game. For those interested in different modalities of decentralization, how you design it, Tim, this book has a fantastic example of putting decision rights, collapsing a period, putting decision rights more out in the field versus having a massive set of bureaucracy overseeing it, in the comparison of McDonald's and Oban Pen. And anyway, it's got great data and design stuff. So for people interested in that and what AI could, it doesn't have the AI part, but it's some really great thinking about org design, motivation, and compensation.
Thank you, John, for that tip. Okay, for today, we have 3 importants and 3 optionals. And we got quite a bit of kudos from Ashish and others and Valda on that discussion that we had about leadership in the days of AI. All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for participating. Thanks, Tim, for joining. We'll see you all tomorrow.